Welcome back to When Harry Met Board Games, where we feed our people with relatable content, and our victory condition is your satisfaction. I'm Harry, and today we have another top 10 list for you all. Today I'm going to be sharing you guys my top 10 board games from the BGG Top 100 that I absolutely need to play. That's a long title. I don't know how I'm going to summarize it for a thumbnail, but basically a few weeks back, I made a list that was a little bit different. I shared with you guys my top 10 board games from the BGG Top 100 ranking that I actually have played and that I enjoy the most. Now, for you who are not familiar with what BGG refers to, it's an abbreviation for BoardGameGeek.com, which is the most popular and largest board game database in the entire World Wide Web. Now, last time I shared the games that I have played and enjoyed, and I've played over 40 titles from that Top 100, but that still means that more than half of that list are games that I have never even tried before. And one of the reasons for that is the fact that I don't necessarily determine and decide which games I'm going to purchase, try, and play based on those rankings. While those rankings might have some influence in my purchases and my plays, they're not the end-all and be-all. I care more about reviews, about reading descriptions, mechanisms, designers, and publishers, and themes than I care about the BGG rankings or games that are popular or all of the buzz within the board game community. Now, with that being said, these are 10 games that are obviously very highly popular that I am a little bit ashamed that I have not played yet. Now, for the purposes of ranking and ordering this list from 10 to 1, I've decided, since I have not played these games yet and really don't know necessarily which ones I'm going to like the most, I'm simply going to rank them 10 to 1 accordingly or in proportion to how they rank on the actual database. So with all that long-winded preface, let's get straight to the list. My number 10 board game from the BGG Top 100 that I absolutely need to play is Mage Knight. And Mage Knight, designed by Vlad Chvátil, is known for its very immersive, fantasy-themed gameplay, but at the same time with Euro mechanisms, breaking the mold. This game is over 10 years old at a time where fantasy-themed games tended to be completely relegated to the Ameritrash side of things. But Vlad Chvátil took this immersive, fantasy-themed game and incorporated some Euro mechanisms, some deck building and such. And this game is also widely regarded, widely renowned as one of the most popular and best executed solo games out there. So those are already a couple of reasons why I'm curious about playing the game. I like the fantasy theme. I like the idea of Euro mechanisms being used in fantasy theme, dungeon crawl, hex crawl type of games. And I like the fact that it supposedly plays very well solo. I'm always looking for games that have good solo modes or variants. So my number 10 board game from the BGG Top 100 that I need to play, Mage Knight. Now we move on to my number 9 board game from the BGG Top 100. And of all the games on this list, this is actually the one that I'm most on the fence about and probably the one I'm least likely to actually play. Some of these games I actually hope to play very soon. Some of them are already on my shelf of shame. This one here, I'm a little iffy about it, but I decided to include it because of all the good things I've heard about it, and that is Orleon. And Orleon is a bag building game with a French medieval theme, a city building theme, if you will, and you have all these different workers that do different things, and you pull them out of the bag and you add them to your pool. Again, I haven't played this game, so I can't speak too much to it as far as how the game plays and how well it is, but for whatever reason, I've been a little bit reluctant to bite on this one. I'm not necessarily sure if I'm a huge fan of the bag building mechanism. A lot of people might be. I'm not so much. The theme sounds interesting. The city building elements sound interesting. And obviously, I cannot ignore the fact that it ranks very highly on the BGG Top 100. And time again, I see this on my social medias, on my Facebooks, on my Instagram feeds. I hear people talk about it all the time. Quite often in my top 10 list, people will comment down below about a list I've talked about, and they will mention Orleon. So feel free to comment down below and tell me, should I actually finally let this game win me over and bring me over to the dark side to actually give it a try? I don't know. But for now, of all the games on the BGT Top 100 that I'm thinking I need to try, this one is number 9, Orleon. Now we move on to my number 8 board game from the BGG Top 100 that I absolutely need to try, and that is A Feast for Odin. And this is an Uwe Rosenberg agricultural themed worker placement game. And I'm a huge fan of Uwe Rosenberg, and in particular this style of games. Lots of people say that Uwe kind of just goes back to the same gimmick, one trick pony type of designer. I've seen him spread his wings and do different types of games like Bonanza and Nova Luna and Patchwork. But at the same time, I am a big appreciator of these style of games. Agricola is one of my favorite games of all time. I like Le Havre. I like Ora and Labora. These games are all really, really good. I like Caverna. And this game here has first of all, it has a Viking Norse theme to it, and also it incorporates a few of his polyomino philosophical designs from games like Patchwork and Cottage Garden. So he's combining his two most recognized game styles, his worker placement agricultural stuff, combining it with his polyomino Tetris-like games as well. So that sounds very neat, very interesting. It's probably one of his heaviest games on the BGG Top 100. I do actually own a copy of the game and actually plan to get it to the table sometime in the next couple months. But currently, as of this recording, I have not played this game yet, and I do not know why I've waited so long. Uwe Rosenberg, I apologize. My number 8 board game from the BGG Top 100 that I absolutely need to play, Feast for Odin. Now we move on to my number 7 board game from the BGG Top 100 that I need to play, and that is Nemesis. And Nemesis is a science fiction or kind of like horror science themed dungeon crawl style game that has taken the world by storm. Just like I mentioned with Orleon, I find this in my social media feeds all the time. First of all, because it is a looker of a game. It has lots of nice plastic miniature pieces with lots of detail, good artwork for the board and what have you. But also, just for whatever reason, the theme and the mechanisms, the fact that it's a dungeon crawl that's not too long, that's not too overly complex or heavy, has helped it bump up really, really high. I mean, how many dungeon crawl style horror science themed games do you find this highly ranked on BGG's Top 100? And it's somewhere in the top 15 or so, which is very, very impressive. It's just really skyrocketed up that ranking over the last couple years. I do like dungeon crawl style games. I do like science fiction. I do like science horror when implemented correctly. So I don't see why this game would not resonate with me. And again, at the same time, very well liked, very popular with other people. So now I do tend to prefer my dungeon crawl style games to be fantasy themed, but I'm absolutely okay with a science themed, just explore the spacecraft or whatever it is, escape the alien organisms kind of idea that's going on. I like the Alien movie series, and I feel like this is a little bit down that path as far as the theme is concerned. So yeah, but for whatever reason, I haven't played it yet, but hopefully, one day before I pass away, I'll get a chance to get this game to the table. My number 7 board game from the BGG Top 100 that I need to play, Nemesis. Now we move on to my number 6 board game from the BGG Top 100 that I need to play. And lots of people might be disappointed about this one, but that is Scythe by Jamie Stegmaier and Stonemaier Games. And Scythe is, besides Orleon, this is the game on this particular top 10 list that I'm most on the fence about. I don't know what it is, but for whatever reason, I'm a little reluctant to click on the purchase button or on the buy button whenever I investigate and explore this game. First of all, it seems like it's a hybrid or a quasi-hybrid of Euro and Ameritrash, although from everything I keep on hearing and reading, it's really just a Euro game disguised in the garb of an Ameritrash game with these nice looking miniatures and this table presence and what have you. And there is a little bit of conflict, but for the most part, this is just a Euro game about an almost worker placement type mechanism and using your resources and what have you. Again, I don't want to speak too much as to the gameplay because I've never played this game, but I am not so convinced that I will be a fan of the game. And at the same time, the price point is pretty high for a game that I'm feeling a little bit doubtful about. Jamie Stegmaier is an excellent board game designer. His repertoire, it speaks for himself. So many games of his are ranked very highly on BGG, and in particular in the BGG Top 100. But of all of his games, this is the one that I am very insecure about pulling the trigger on. But at the same time, I can't ignore how massively successful this game is, how ubiquitous its presence is all over the board game community. And again, Jamie Stegmaier, Stonemaier Games, and their resume, it speaks for themselves. So I needed to include this on this list. My number 6 board game from the BGG Top 100 that I need to play, Scythe. Now we move on to the top 5, folks, the cream of the crop, the absolute 5 highest ranked games on BGG that I need to play or want to play. Doesn't mean that these are the top 5 on BGG. Doesn't mean these are the top 5 on BGG that I haven't played. But these are the top 5 on BGG that I haven't played and feel like I must. My number 5 board game from the BGG Top 100 that I absolutely need to play is Great Western Trail. And Great Western Trail is a Wild West, Old West themed game designed by Alexander Pfister. And I am a big fan of Alexander Pfister's small box games. Port Royal and Oh My Goods are 2 of my absolute favorite games of all time. These are excellent, phenomenal games that come in small boxes, small packages, small table footprint, but are so meaty and crunchy of an experience that I highly enjoy them. And here's the thing, I've never played a big box Alexander Pfister game, and he has quite a few out there, including Maracaibo, which is also highly ranked on BGG's Top 100. But of all his big box games that I really want to get to the table, Great Western Trail has to stand out. And this is a game that I've been a little bit insecure about for some time. It was out of print for a good while, and then it got picked back up by another publisher. Stronghold had its rights for quite some time. Now it's published by somebody else. Can't think of who the publisher is off the top of my head, but I know that it's in circulation. And the theme looks interesting. There's a little bit of a light deck building mechanism that's taking place, and I like that as well. It seems like there's a little bit of a pick up and delivery thing going on where you're picking up cattle and moving them to different towns and what have you. Again, don't take my description of the game too at heart or too seriously. I have not played this game, but there's just enough there, and the notoriety, the popularity of Alexander Pfister and his games that I have played that so far of his that I've enjoyed, it makes me gravitate towards this game and want to play it. And now that it's back in print and readily and easily available, it's something I strongly need to consider adding this game to my collection and hopefully getting to the table. My number 5 board game from the BGG Top 100 that I need to play, Great Western Trail. Now we move on to my number 4 board game from the BGG Top 100, and that is Gaia Project. And Gaia Project is a science fiction civilization style game, really. And it's also a spin-off and a re-implementation of an older, also popular game on BGG's Top 100, Terra Mystica. And Terra Mystica is a little bit more of a polarizing game than Gaia Project. Gaia Project has been much more well-received. While there's lots of people who adore and swear by Terra Mystica, Gaia Project is more universally recognized within the board game community as a popular game, as a thematic game. Now, Terra Mystica is a fantasy-themed implementation of the same gaming system, while Gaia Project is its space-themed science fiction cousin. And Gaia Project looks a little bit more interesting to me. It looks like they might have changed and improved a few of the core concepts from the original game, and also, again, it's just people speak better to it, so I'm leaning more towards Gaia Project out of the 2 games. But they're both very highly ranked on BGG Top 100 and a little bit hard to ignore. So that's a game that I have to look into playing. My number 4 game from the BGG Top 100 that I need to play, Gaia Project. Now we move on to my number 3 board game from the BGG Top 100, and this game was the number 1 ranked game when I created my own survey for the People's Choice Top 100 board games. You should check that video out. I surveyed over 3,100 individuals from the Instagram board game community, and the results came in, and the number 1 game, according to the Instagram board game community, was Terraforming Mars. And this is the number 3 board game that I need to get played from BGG Top 100. And that really solidified, that survey that I did really solidified my desire to play this game, because I was on the fence about this game as well, because it too is a little polarizing because of its success, because of its popularity. Those who hate on the game hate strongly, and sometimes those hateful comments, those negative comments, influence a person like me who has not played the game. But it looks interesting enough. Some nice card drafting, the theme of terraforming the planet Mars. It has obviously lots of support. I think there's like 4 or 5 expansions. There's the standalone game, the Ares Expedition, I think it's called, that came out a few months ago or a year ago. And that game is not, it's not a standalone expansion. It's like its own thing, but it's within that universe, I believe. So it's had success. It's doing well, and it's well received again among the larger sector of the board game community. So there's no reason why I can't give it a try. And again, a game that I absolutely need to play from the BGG Top 100, Terraforming Mars. And now we move on to the number 2 board game from the BGG Top 100, and that is Brass. And Brass comes in 2 iterations. You got Lancashire and you got Birmingham. Lancashire was the original iteration by designer Martin Wallace several years ago. And then a few years back, the Birmingham re-implementation came out. And I'm not so sure, even though Martin Wallace is credited as a co-designer for that, there's 2 additional names that go along with it. So I'm not so sure how much Martin Wallace was involved in the development of the game. I imagine he must have given his thumbs up, at least, for some of the directions that they may have taken that game in. But I believe that the 2 other designers probably were more to credit for the differences between Birmingham, let's say, and Lancashire. Either way, both of these games are ranked very high on the BGG Top 100. And Birmingham in particular is ranked in the top 5. So it is a very well-received game. It is absolutely has to be recognized as Martin Wallace's magnus opus, his most successful game. And this game here seems like a very weighty Euro-style game. I look at it, and the honest truth is, when I look at it, the table present, I look at the board, the pieces, the components, I'm not too attracted to it. But at the same time, there's just something about the name, the aura that comes with this game. There's something about Martin Wallace and his reputation, the fact that this is his best received game. There's something about the fact that this game has 2 different iterations that are both ranked within like the top 20 of the BGG's rankings. There's something about this game that's calling me to play it. Quite often I see people post about it again on my social media feeds. So it is a game that when people have something to say about it, quite often it's very positive and very good. This game isn't very polarizing like some of the earlier games that I mentioned early on. At the same time, it doesn't seem like it's as much for the general public as some of these games might be. But I'm very curious and intrigued about giving this game a shot. My number 2 board game from the BGG Top 100 that I need to play, Brass, either Birmingham or Lancashire. Now let's move on to my number 1 board game from the BGG Top 100 that I haven't played, but I must. You might have guessed it. It's Gloomhaven, folks. And you could include Gloomhaven Jaws of a Lion, which I also have not played, which is also ranked very highly on the BGG Top 100. For all we know, the game that ends up eclipsing Gloomhaven on the ranking might end up being Jaws of a Lion. This game is a fantasy-themed dungeon crawl style game with Euro mechanism. So we kind of started the list with a fantasy-themed adventure game that incorporated Euro mechanisms, and we're ending the list here with that similar idea, that similar general concept of a dungeon crawl or fantasy themed game with Euro mechanisms. However, Gloomhaven seems to be a much more bigger of an investment of a game. It has lots of hours of gameplay, lots of content that comes just in the base box. Gloomhaven also has a legacy aspect to it that a game like Mage Knight does not have. Now, Gloomhaven has been very well received. Lots of people who are not even fans of the dungeon crawl genre have learned to love that style of game thanks to games like Gloomhaven. Gloomhaven has driven people from both the Ameritrash world and the Euro world and have brought them together in harmony to enjoy this gaming system. Now, me personally, since I haven't played either Gloomhaven or Jaws of the Lion, I'm thinking that I'm going to lean towards playing Jaws of the Lion first, because from what I hear, it's kind of a good and functional tutorial to the bigger system of Gloomhaven. But I do own both of these games, and I have both of them in my ever glorious shelf of shame, and the plan is to get Jaws of the Lion to the table very soon, in the next month or two, actually. That's the plan, that's the goal. And then after I go through that system, eventually get Gloomhaven, the original, to the table as well. But this is a game that I need to get played just for the sake of my reputation as a board game reviewer. But yeah, I'm excited about the prospect of Gloomhaven. Unlike some of the other games on the list, I don't feel too much on the fence about this game. The only thing that kept me from this game a long time was the very high price point. But this past year, or about a year ago, I got it gifted to me from my sister as a late Father's Day gift. And I was like, hey, that's awesome, because I don't think I ever would have coughed up the $120 to $140 that it usually runs for. So thanks to my sister for purchasing that game for me. But now that I've owned it, now that I got Jaws of the Lion, I've got to get these games to the table and eventually share with you guys my thoughts as to how I feel about it. My number one board game from the BGG Top 100 that I need to get played, Gloomhaven. And that's it for today's list, folks. Thank you so much for joining us here at When Harry Met Board Games. Please comment down below. Tell me what games from the BGG Top 100 you have yet to play, but you feel like you must. Tell me which of these games from my current list you're most surprised, flabbergasted, appalled of the fact that I haven't played these games yet. I'm interested in reading what you guys have to say. This is Harry saying take care, everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy, and have fun gaming. Bye-bye.